Hello, children. Are you ready for the class today? Let us see Chapter 9, Development Experiences in India. We have already finished 8 chapters in economics, and today we are going to see the ninth chapter. Turn to page 189 in your textbooks. Development Experiences in India. When did India get its independence? It was in the year 1947. So at that time, the condition of India was very poor. The Indian economy was in a very backward state. So we had to implement a lot of reforms after Indian independence in the year 1947. So in this chapter, we will be learning about the various reforms introduced in the recent years. Reforms introduced in the recent years. When did India get its independence? It was in the year 1947. So, at the time of independence in 1947, India was typically backward economy. The economy of India was backward, மிகவும் பின்தங்கிய ஒரு பொருளாதாரம். Why was the Indian economy very backward? Because the technology was very poor, the scientific capabilities of the people was very poor, industrialization was limited, people were more reliant on agricultural sector. More and more people dependent on agricultural sector. Even though they were dependent on agricultural sector, the productivity was very low. அக்ரிகல்ச்சரல் செக்டரை பார்த்தீங்கன்னா உற்பத்தி திறன் மிகவும் பின்தங்கி இருந்தது, குறைவாக இருந்தது. நிறைய பேர் வேளாண்மை துறையில தான் வேலை செஞ்சுட்டு இருந்தாங்க. ஆனா உற்பத்தி திறன் மிகவும் குறைவா இருந்தது. இன்னும் இண்டஸ்ட்ரியலைசேஷன் ஸ்டார்ட் ஆகல இந்தியால. அக்ரிகல்ச்சருக்கு தான் முக்கியத்துவம் கொடுத்திருந்தாங்க. Transport and communication was underdeveloped. Transport facility was very poor. We did not have sufficient communication facilities. Education and health facilities were inadequate. It was not sufficient for the population. Education was mainly given for male children. Female children were deprived of education. Health facility was very poor. Birth rate was high, but the death rate was also high because of poor health facilities. In brief, the country suffered from twin problems. We had poverty and widespread unemployment. So, the most important problems seen after Indian independence was poverty, varumai, வேலையின்மை, unemployment. This led to low standard of living. What do you mean by low standard of living? சரியான உணவு இல்லை, சரியான உடை இல்லை, சரியா தங்குறதுக்கு இருப்பிடம் இல்லை. ஸோ வாழ்க்கை தரம் மிகவும் குறைவாக காணப்பட்டது because of poverty and unemployment. This year, 1991, is a very, very important year. This year, 1991, is an important landmark in the economic history of post-independent India because India came out with structural reforms in the year 1991: liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So, 1991 is a very, very important year in Indian history. The country went through a severe economic crisis. So, after the Britishers left India, they plundered all the wealth, and India was in a very backward economy. There was severe economic crisis. பொருளாதாரத்துல ஒரு பயங்கரமான ஒரு போராட்டம். So, what did India do? It had to solve the economic crisis. So, India approached the World Bank and the IMF. So, India had lots of problem. Let me go to the previous slide. India had lots of problem. So, India wanted to correct these problems. So, in 1991, India met with an economic crisis relating to external debt. The government was not able to make borrowing from abroad. We had lot of debt from outside, so we were not able to borrow any more funds from outside. The foreign exchange reserves dropped, so we were not able to manage the crisis. Moreover, what happened in India, prices started rising. There was inflation. நான் சொல்றது விளங்குதாமா? பயங்கரமான ஒரு போராட்டமான நிலைமை. எந்த இயர்? 1991. ஓகே, 1947 இருந்தே பிரச்சனை வந்துட்டே இருந்தது. 1991 நிறைய ப்ராப்ளம்ஸு, நிறைய கடன் வாங்கிட்டோம். கடன் வாங்கினதெல்லாம் திருப்பி தர முடியல. இதே நேரத்தில் நம்ம இந்தியாக்குள்ள விலைவாசி ஜாஸ்தி ஆயிட்டே போகுது. இந்த சூழ்நிலையில இந்தியா வந்து 2 இன்டர்நேஷனல் ஆர்கனைசேஷன் கிட்ட போறாங்க. One is IBRD, which is called as the World Bank, and the other one is called as the International Monetary Fund. So, for availing the loans from these two international organizations, India had to do certain things. So, India போய் இவங்க கிட்ட போய் கடன் கேட்குறாங்க. எவ்வளோ கடன் கேட்குறாங்க? $7 billion. They are asking this as loan. India is approaching the World Bank and the IMF, and they are asking for $7 billion as loan. So, for availing the loan, these international agencies expected India to liberalize and open up the economy by removing restrictions on the private sectors. ஸோ அது வரைக்கும் நிறைய கட்டுப்பாடுகள் இருந்தது. அப்போ இவங்க 2 பேர் சொல்றாங்க, உங்க நாட்டுக்குள்ள இருக்கக்கூடிய இந்த கட்டுப்பாடுகள் எல்லாம் நீங்க எடுக்கணும். You have to liberalize. You have to open up the Indian economy. So India agreed to these conditions laid by the World Bank and International Monetary Fund and announced a set of policies which is called as the New Educational Policy. The government initiated various policies that fell under 3 heads: liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So 1991 is a very, very important year in the economic history of post-independent India, because India came up with the new educational policy that fell under 3 heads: liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So the country went through severe economic crisis. Indian economy responded to the crisis by introducing a set of policies known as structural reforms. So this was initiated by the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund when India approached them for loans. These policies were aimed at correcting the weaknesses and rigidities in the various sectors of the economy, such as industry, trade, fiscal, and agriculture. So these policies helped in correcting the weakness in areas like industry, trade, fiscal, and agricultural sector. So what do you mean by liberalization, privatization, and globalization? In short, this is called as LPG. This was implemented in the year 1991. So ரொம்ப முக்கியமான ஆண்டு. எந்த ஆண்டு? 1991. என்ன அறிமுகப்படுத்தப்பட்டது? LPG, or the New Economic Policies, which fell under 3 heads. The triple pillar of new economic policies are liberalization, privatization, and globalization. LPG, liquefied petroleum gas கிடையாது. இது எக்கனாமிக்ஸ்ல வரக்கூடிய LPG, which is called as liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So what do you mean by liberalization? Liberalization refers to removal of relaxation of governmental restriction and all stages in industries. So தாராளம் இண்டஸ்ட்ரியில நிறைய கட்டுப்பாடு இருந்தது. லைசன்ஸ் கொடுக்கறதுல ஒரு கட்டுப்பாடு இருந்தது. நிறைய கண்ட்ரோல் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தாங்க. நிறைய ரூல்ஸ் அண்ட் ரெகுலேஷன்ஸ் இருந்தது. சப்சைடிஸ், டாக்ஸஸ், இது எல்லாத்துலேயும் ஒரு ரிலாக்ஸேஷன் கொண்டு வந்தாங்க. திஸ் இஸ் ஒன்லி கால்ட் அஸ் லிபரலைசேஷன். Liberalization refers to removal of relaxation of governmental restrictions on all stages in industries. Privatization. Privatization means தனியார் மயமாக்கல். கவர்மெண்ட் கிட்ட இருந்து நிறைய செக்டர்ஸை யாருக்கு கொடுத்துட்டாங்க? தனியார் கிட்ட கொடுத்துட்டாங்க. என்னால் பார்க்க முடியலப்பா, நீ பார்த்துக்கோ, பிரைவேட் பீப்புள்கிட்ட கொடுத்துட்டாங்க. Privatization means transfer of ownership and management of enterprises from public sector to private sector. So they are transferring the ownership from public to private. Public means government. Public sector means government sectors. Private means they are giving it to individuals. So privatization means transfer of ownership and management of enterprises from public sector to private sector. ஸோ இது வந்து என்னது டீநேஷனலைசேஷனாக இருக்கலாம், டிஸ்இன்வெஸ்ட்மெண்ட்டாக இருக்கலாம், and opening exclusive public sector enterprises to private sector are the gateways to privatization. Next, we have globalization, உலகமயமாக்கல். எந்த நாடும் தனியாக இருக்க முடியாது. Each country is dependent on some other country. So all the countries are dependent on each other. So what is globalization? Extending our territory beyond the boundary of a country is called as globalization. Globalization refers to the integration of the domestic economy with the rest of the world. இந்தியன் எக்கனாமியை மற்ற கண்ட்ரியோட ஒருங்கிணைக்கிறதுக்கு பேர் தான் என்னது குளோபலைசேஷன். முந்திலாம் என்னது காஞ்சிபுரம் சில்க் சாரினா இந்தியாவில் தான், பாசுமதி ரைஸ் இந்தியாவில் தான். ஓகே, அதே மாதிரி ஃபாரின் பெப்சி, கொக்கோ கோலா இதெல்லாம் ஃபாரின் கண்ட்ரிஸ் இது. ஸோ ஆஃப்டர் குளோபலைசேஷன் வாட் ஹேப்பன்? அவர் காஞ்சிபுரம் சில்க் சாரி went to USA. The products from USA came to India. The products from UK came to India. பிரேசில்லேருந்து இந்தியாவுக்கு வந்தது. இந்தியா ப்ராடக்ட்ஸ் வந்து பாகிஸ்தானுக்கு, ஃப்ரான்ஸ்க்கு, ஜெர்மனிக்கு, இந்த மாதிரி நிறைய இடத்துக்கு போக ஆரம்பிச்சது. திஸ் இஸ் ஒன்லி கால்ட் அஸ் குளோபலைசேஷன். ஸோ இம்போர்ட் லிபரலைசேஷன் த்ரூ ரிடக்ஷன் ஆஃப் tariff and non-tariff barriers, opening the doors to foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment are some of the measures towards globalization. ஸோ மூன்று முக்கியமான காரியம் நடந்தது 1991. They are called as the triple pillars of new economic policy: liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So what do you mean by liberalization? You can follow it in your textbook 190. Liberalization refers to the removal of relaxation of governmental restriction on all stages of industries. You can mark this for liberalization. Liberalization எப்படிலாம் பண்ணலாம்? De-licensing-ஆ இருக்கலாம், de-control-ஆ இருக்கலாம். I will be dealing with this in our next video. Next one is privatization. What is privatization? What do you mean by privatization? Question number 23. Privatization means transfer of ownership and management of enterprises from public sector to private sector. Privatization means transfer of ownership and management of enterprises from public sector to private sector. Next, we have globalization. This is the answer for question number 29. Globalization refers to the integration of domestic economy with the rest of the world. Okay, நம்ம எக்கனாமியை மற்ற கண்ட்ரியோட இணைக்கிறதுக்கு பேர் தான் என்னது? Globalization. So in today's video we have seen some important question. What do you mean by liberalization? What is privatization? What is globalization? What are the three pillars or the triple pillars of new economic policy? They are liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So we have seen question number 21. Why was structural reform implemented in Indian economy? எதுக்கு structural reform கொண்டு வந்தாங்க? As already said, there were a lot of problems in the Indian economy. Indian economy responded to the crisis by introducing a set of economic policies called as structural reforms. This is found on page number 189. Question number 21. Why was structural reform implemented in Indian economy? Page number 189 எடுத்துக்கிட்டிங்கன்னா 9.1 கீழே Indian economy responded to the crisis by introducing a set of policies known as structural reforms. These policies were aimed at correcting the weaknesses and rigidities in the various sectors of the economy, such as industry, trade, fiscal, and agriculture. So this will be the answer for question number 21. இதுதான் question number 21க்கு answer. Okay, 21. You can mark this in your textbook. Answer for question number 21. Next we have state the reasons for implementing LPG. What are the reasons for implementing LPG? This is found on page number 190. Reasons for implementing LPG is found on page number 190, but we do not have that question in our reduced content. So let us move on to question number 23, privatization. What do you mean by privatization? Question number 23. State the meaning of privatization. So we have the answer here. Privatization means transfer of ownership and management of enterprises from public sector to private sector. This is the answer for question number 23. Then we have question number 29. What are the measures taken towards globalization? What are the measures for that? You can write from this what is meant by globalization and what are the measures taken for towards globalization. This is the answer for question number 29. Globalization refers to the integration of the domestic economy with the rest of the world, import liberalization through reduction of tariff and non-tariff barriers, opening the doors to foreign direct investment and foreign portfolio investment are some of the measures towards globalization. This will be the answer for question number 29. Okay, so I think I will stop with this today. Go through question number 21, 23, and 29.